right, I'm here with Regina Galiyeva.
Galiyeva, yeah.
Galiyeva. I've been practicing off camera. 9 years you've been helping brides and grooms and people getting married. A lot of going on when you get married. We worked together on a wedding here. I guess it was
in April.
April.
Yeah.
April's gone. And that was a really fun wedding. They had some really interesting things, a lot of little details, a lot of little things. And so I think I was doing the audio as well. We do audio at our venue. And there's just, so we got to work together. And so it was really nice working with you. You had this very sense of calm, even though there's so many things going on and everything had to go just right, of course. And there was a lot of details. They wanted this song queued up at this time, and you were kind of like, okay, ready, like queuing me up for the music, because it had to be right at this time. And it was very specific, detailed stuff. And I've worked with a lot of wedding planners now because I have a venue. And so I wanted to have you back because I do feel like you're one of the better ones, one of the best I've worked with. And so I really hope that people who are listening to this, who are about to plan a wedding, can take some notes, because what you're going to inform them with and tell them, I think, is very valuable because of your experience, 9 years experience. And you have a very unique background. You don't think it's that unique, but I think it's very unique for a wedding planner. I haven't ever met a wedding planner with your unique background. I think that's also what makes your experience even more interesting too, because you have this background. And so we're going to get into that as well. So first, I'd like to kind of give people just kind of something up front, So is there something kind of top of mind you can kind of think of that, a lot of bride and grooms, they forget this. This is something, or I'm really surprised, I've done 9 years of weddings. I'm really surprised, this is just something that, God, they keep forgetting. It's such an important thing, but man, they just keep forgetting. Anything on top of mind, just at the beginning, you can think of that would help people right off the bat? What kind of things would they want to?
Well, I would certainly, there's no such thing as, I would say, one same thing across all the couples that they would forget, right? But I do see the tendency in the past couple of years, of course, with, prices going up and just Pinterest throwing out all kinds of different new ideas in couples. So I'm noticing that couples starting to plan weddings themselves versus hiring a wedding planner, but they do put more value in the coordinator on the day off. So in my services, besides the planning services, we do provide a day of coordination service only, where we sort of come in, there's a month of planner included there. So we come in 30 days before to make sure everything is finalized correctly. We help the couples to finally take the planner head off, put the bride head on so she can go and get her mani-pedis and things like that. So within that 30-day period, I am noticing kind of the same tendency where couples, it's not that they forget, they just simply don't have enough experience planning weddings because it's normal, right? You would want to plan your wedding once in your lifetime. So, but when we come in, we do notice a lot of little things, even with the wedding we worked last time with you, with Vanessa and Matthew. There are some things that couples just don't know that they need that. And sometimes as a planner, I would come in and I would ask them for all the information that they got from wedding vendors and what they booked them for and everything. And just knowing what those things are, what the wedding language is, reviewing the invoices and contracts, I'm realizing that couple may have forgotten to have dinner plates, for example, completely. I've had a situation where couple came in and they ordered a lot of beautiful decor. They ordered beautiful charger plates that would look very nice on pictures, but they had 0 plates at all, just because they thought charger plates were actually serving plates,
Right.
And whenever I tell this story to other vendors who are not in decor, they also don't know. They have no idea what charger plate is, So it's not, I would say wedding planning is not a rocket science, right? But it is definitely very detail oriented, and you have to understand how some of those things work to make sure your event ends up flawless. So just forgetting some things, or not knowing, for example, we having a wedding coming up right now where we have a couple of photo booth options, and they would usually request specific space, specific tables to, to make sure that they set up correctly. And couples, in between all this mayhem of planning, interacting with their relatives, finalizing final guest list, they just forget those things. And if you don't have somebody to kind of review this and help, a lot of things crumble. You hear that say, oh, weddings without a hiccup, rarely happens. Well, that's because you need somebody who comes in and ties all the knots and kind of checks, okay, we have this, we have this, we have this. But if you don't have it, it can turn a little bit mayhemish.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've seen. I've really appreciated having weddings with planners.
Yeah.
Because as the venue, a lot of times I get the questions, and from multiple people, I'll get, the mother of the bride, or, multiple people, multiple opinions. But just to have one point of contact that's what I really appreciated having you. And I've some other planners I've worked with, and it's just, I feel the stress of the day is way less,
Right.
Last couple I've had no planner, and, I felt like the bride and grooms, they were at work more than at their wedding. And then also having brides and grooms with, the family will support, which is really nice. Some people have great support, some people don't. But again, it's like now your family's being put to work. And this is something that I'm seeing with weddings is you want this day to be so special and so memorable for your friends and your family and everybody, including yourself. And I really feel like the wedding planner is such an important part, because even though it's like, oh, it seems expensive and we can just plan it ourselves. Yeah, you could plan it yourselves. Yeah, you could do this. Yeah, you could do that. But the point is to have this wonderful event, this moment that's gone in a flash, that you're not having to work at. It's not your job.
I 100% agree there with you, because wedding is an experience. The actual celebration of a wedding. You can, of course, go to courthouse and get married there. You don't have to have the whole shebang.
Right.
So if you're approaching this from the experience point, having good vendors, having a good professional wedding planner will add to this experience, so it will end up being flawless. And I'm not saying you have to spend a lot of money. You just have to pick those that match your vision and that can understand you. But you mentioned about relatives and working on the day off. That's actually has been a little bit of a pain point for us at some of the weddings lately, which we're considering changing what we allow, what we don't. And you have to always see kind of different couple. We want to make sure that they're having a good time as well. But having relatives or friends and family assist on the day off with setup, for example, it's very tricky, because for us as day off coordinators, for example, if we rely on that help from family to come in and help, but then the family gets busy, they have hair and makeup going on, they have photo shoots going on and this and that, and we have certain parts of the setup relying on that family, we staff our team appropriately, because there's some things will be set up by family, and they just don't have time, or they're just too busy, or they just don't even know how what they even should do. It all falls on us on the day off, and that ruins the whole flow, because we were staffed for some things and we were not. So because of that, we're trying to even restructure some of the restrictions where we say, please enjoy your day off. Let your family have a day off, fantastic day. We would like for you guys not to participate in the setup.
Yeah, and it's a lot of times it's just the moms and the dads and the uncles. They're like, oh, we want to help. They
Right.
want to help, and they want to. And it's wonderful, because that's what family is. They want to help in the family. They want to help and they want to be involved, and they want to support. But really, just by being there and enjoying the moment and not having to work and not being stressed,
Right.
and not trying to race off and not trying to deal with this, that's actually very supportive, because they're immersed in this wedding and they're not working the wedding.
Absolutely. And also the way I suggest to my couples how they would want their family to feel special and feel involved, they can give them certain other more lighter on stress duties. The maid of honor can help with the dress, and your brother's kids could be in a bridal party, and moms and dads, they could be responsible for when the guests come in, and they could say hello to the guests as they arrive. Usually, I don't want to call them ushers, but it is still important where all they have to do is just be present and be happy for their kids instead of worrying how they need to put the cake and how they need to put these linens and napkins. And I would suggest give it to the staff, and staff will take care of it.
Yeah, that's a great point of not denying people wanting to help, but just giving them jobs that they can handle and that are fun. It's like, yeah, can you greet people when they come in? That's a wonderful job. And they get to help, they get to contribute, and they get to greet everybody with a friendly face and meet everybody and welcome people. That's actually something that I should really start suggesting, because I feel that as well. Usually we do parking here, and so I'm kind of the first person, and they're always kind of like, are you related? Are you a friend? I'm like, no, I'm with the venue. They're like, oh, okay. And so, but I'm the first point of contact. But it would be nice if it was actually a friend or family member to go, hey, welcome. And, I'm such and such, and I'm related to this. Because that's what a wedding is. A lot of times these people have never met before. And here they are. They're going to be connected now for the rest of their lives, hopefully, where, uncle this and uncle that are now meeting for the first time. And who knows, these are family relationships, family connections now. And that's really what a wedding can be, is this connection of all these people, all your friends and family, that there's a reason why you're attracted to your partner is because they have certain qualities. Well, guess where they got those qualities? They got it from the family. And so it would be nice to invest more of that time in connecting with these wonderful people that you're really connected with, even though it's like, oh, it's just an uncle or it's just an aunt. No, this is the person that helped raise the person you're marrying and gave them values. So even spending even more time in something like that is really valuable.
And it certainly adds to the warmth of the event. I definitely, the way we work, and plan our weddings is we focus on, again, experience. There are different types of wedding planners. Some focus on the wedding design, some focus on some sort of other things. We focus on experience, and it comes from that unique background you mentioned earlier. Experience and memories is something that we want to make sure couples leave that day and they remember it for a long, long time. Not that the cake was standing in 45 degrees and, not 50 degrees or something. We want them to remember how much fun they had. And we can only plan as much as we can for that, but we can't infuse those happy memories. That all comes from the family. It all comes from the guests. So every time, and I'm in this business as well, and you probably are too, because we just love weddings and we love how happy people are after that day. So I've noticed throughout all the weddings that I've done, what makes it a great event is not just the planning part, but who are coming to your event. And so if the family can contribute in that way, that's even more memorable. They will go for years how they were helping with this thing and how they were bustling the dress, because, especially maid of honor, or if it is a sister. This Saturday I had a wedding, and the maid of honor was bride's sister, and she just wanted to make sure everything was going perfect for her sister, for her bride. So I remember she was bustling the dress, and she wanted to make sure things run, she was very involved, but she was so sweet too. And I'm sure she will remember this years ahead, and it was special for the bride, it was special for her, and it's another bonding moment for them too, so it's very nice.
yeah that's nice that you help with that. You're facilitating those connections, right? And that's the experience. I mean, we think a lot of times we can think the experience is Pinterest and what it's going to look like in the photos, and because that's what we were so immersed in. Oh, there's detail, and how's this going to match? But it's a wonderful thing to have as like the set of like this movie that is this amazing event. Like that's why I'm a filmmaker as well, and so I love I see the ambiance in my wedding venues, everything as like the setting, and with movies you can set the scene and it sets the mood for the scene, and that's what I feel like all the napkins and everything. That's what it does. It sets the scene for this movie that is your wedding. And this is, and so we can, the more we kind of have those details, the more beautiful it is, the more people are also going to get into character of like, oh, this is beautiful and this is a wonderful thing. And that's what I get excited about, is having that kind of setting where we can move things and get things right. Well, let's get into your background, because
Yes.
people are now probably like, oh, what's her background? I gotta find it. So let us know what you did, some performance.
So I grew up, I like to say I grew up on the stage.
Yeah.
Because when I was 8 years old, I got into ballroom dancing. Originally, I'm from a very, very small town in Kazakhstan. And I actually like to make it a game. When somebody asks me where I'm from, I make it a game, because nobody ever guesses that I'm from Kazakhstan, because many people don't know about the existence of that country. But I'm from a small town in Kazakhstan, and I was a child. I was watching TV, and I saw some girls dancing, ballet actually. And I asked my parents to take me to ballet classes. And I was faced with the fact that in our small town, we didn't really have many schools of all kinds of stuff, but we did have a class for ballroom dancing, and that's why my mom took me, and that was it. My love been changed since then. So I went into professional ballroom dancing for 8 years, and I actually still dance now to this day, but back then I went professional. And so that sort of built a background for my love for events, for my love for this very like opulent affairs, with lots of beautiful designs and setups and lighting and music, and people having, this fantastic attires, and they, celebrate, just kind of, it's a beautiful event by itself. It's a sport and dance combined, and it's just a beautiful, very elegant event. And this is where my love for these events comes from. So when I went to college, I was always kind of interested in different student organizations and what they do. And I remember after the first time I visited America, I bought me a camera to take pictures. And by no means I'm a professional photographer, no. But when I came back, I started sort of taking photos at different parties and events that we had in college. And I went into had my own organization eventually, where we were providing full media support for all the events. We had photographers, and through that, we were doing it just for fun. In college, we weren't really making any money. It was our extracurricular activity just for ourselves. And that really shed some light on the fact that I love planning events. From just taking pictures, went to planning events. And when I moved to Vegas, I was curious about what I could do here. My background is in journalism. I got my bachelor's in international journalism. I tried to pursue my career in journalism. Now it translates into me doing blogs and podcasts like this. But I learned that we had a school in Las Vegas that teaches you wedding coordination, design. It's called TISO. And I thought, well, why not? Why don't I just pick a niche and I learn about specific event, which is weddings. And there was no turning back after this.
Yeah, that was 9 years ago.
Yep. It was actually a little bit longer than that. I went to school, and then I had to take a little break before I actually got into the industry. I started working at a wedding chapel.
Okay.
So I worked a little bit less than a year in a wedding chapel, and I found out that I like my job was called wedding planner, but it was mainly wedding sales, where we would sell wedding packages and advise couples on what those packages include. And I learned that I love it, and it was awesome. I just figured out for myself that I like a little bit different style of weddings, not just small elopements. I wanted to be involved in everything. And from there, I just went on by myself and kind of started grinding through the years.
That's what I noticed with when you were doing the planning, because I've worked with a lot of planners. You had this performance kind of energy, and I like that, because I'm also come from a sport background, and I'm also in theater, and I'm acting, and so I have that as well. And I remember I was in one musical, and I remember that just that energy of like, here it is, and you kind of had that energy of like, this is like a performance,
Yeah.
and that's why I think, it was fun working with you, because I have that kind of same kind of energy of like, okay, this is game day, and this is like,
Right.
we got to get everything right. And it's like, they always say you win the Super Bowl before you get on the field because of all the planning. So I always see that with the wedding too. Like, I'm always thinking about, okay, if this happens, I'm going to be here, and make sure that this is what's my backup plan, because this or that or something's going to happen. We're outside, power can go, whatever.
Right.
So, I'm always kind of thinking about these types of things. I could see your kind of brain going too, like, okay, this is supposed to go here, but you got this peripheral, and also you weren't frazzled at all. I mean, there was a lot of things happening, and I think that probably comes from that pressure for 8 years being on stage. I mean, you're obviously in front of an audience, right? You have this one performance you can't really mess up. It's not like a movie where you can go, okay, take two, right?
Right.
You got to get it right the first time. And I'm being in just one theater production, I know how much planning. We planned for 4 months. We practiced. And it's like, you got to be at this point with the light hitting here, and the person's going to do this. And it's like so much pressure. But it's also really fun, because it's like, once you get it right, yeah, it's like, wow, the crowd goes wild and you nailed it, right?
Yeah.
So there's that fun too. And that's kind of what a wedding is, where it's like you get everything set up, and then the moment of when you may kiss the bride and everyone goes crazy, right? It's kind of like, right, you feel like okay, we got it, we got that moment. Everything was great, everything worked out. And so I felt like that as well, which was kind of fun.
I like that feeling of inner calmness that you're describing. It does come from years of experience, of course. In the beginning, when I started planning all on my own, and we all go into this field with a good heart. We want to make sure we help the couples, right? But the right help, of course, comes with a lot of experience. So just taking my previous experiences and how things go, I've learned it's certainly much better, just like you said, to put a full production before the day off. So when I talk to my clients, I always notify them that we plan everything before the wedding day, absolutely everything, just so that it will give us a little bit of room for some changes on the day off if needed. But I get so detailed and meticulous about things. Even, for example, when bridal party walks down the aisle and there would be some people who were supposed to be seated instead of standing, we put specific, chair, which chair they will actually be sitting as they walk in, and then they go to the right and they sit on the second chair. It gets very detailed, but it's so organized and smooth because people know what they're supposed to do, rather than coming in and then feeling awkward, worrying how they look, and
Right.
you know what I mean? So I get very, very detailed, but then on the day off, it helps me also to keep my composure, because if I am stressed out and it's seen, it spreads. It
Right.
spreads on the wedding couple, it spreads on their guests, their bridal party, and we want to eliminate that. So I like to joke that I sort of dissociate on the day off a little bit, and I keep any stress inside of me completely aside, and I just keep moving on, and I keep my smile, because I know what's supposed to be happening, and that really helps. And just like you said, they're supposed to be standing here, this is the light, this is how the bridal party lines up. We plan everything in advance, we rehearse, we talk with the couple over and over, so they have a full vision what's going to be happening. And then we'll leave a little bit of room for some, unexpected things. Or, for example, if we're doing a ceremony rehearsal, I suggest usually that the officiant doesn't read the whole speech, to leave a little bit of that,
Even that.
special moment on the day off,
That's interesting, yeah.
Because I want the couple to still hear that special speech from the minister, officiant, for the first time on the day off. But then, so it's certainly very orchestrated. So we want to make sure it's all like a clockwork, everything. So, which is why I like being in this industry, and I like working with great professionals, because everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, and we all just moving all at the same time. And there's this energy in the air where banquet team is doing something, and then there's a venue team is doing something, and the coordinator's moving around, there's rentals coming in, and they all know what to set up. This is the floor plan. So we all literally, like a mechanism, all working together. And then when the couple comes in and then they see everything and they're happy and they're having a blast, you just can't explain the fulfillment that you feel after that.
Yeah, and the moms and their mom's not running around going, I don't know where this is, I don't know where this is. And they're like, oh, she's here, everything's fine, everything's good, right? And, we had a wedding a couple of days ago, and like the groom's going, come on, let's go, we gotta get where's everybody? Sit down, we're trying to do the wedding. Like, he was kind of like, I was like, oh, poor guy, like he was literally rounding everybody up. No one knew where to go, no one where to sit, and he's supposed to like. And he already spent half the day setting up, and he was just like already tired, and and so that was just a prime example of just someone really taking it on himself, and the stress of that. And he's a really nice guy, and he really went all out, and his now wife too, she was very involved, but it was a tough day. And then at the end of the day, I see I remember it was like 10 o'clock at night, and while we're like packing up, he's like, oh man, I haven't even eaten. He didn't eat. And I've never heard the groom like 10 o'clock going, they're like, what are you doing, bro? And he's like, oh man, I'm starving. He didn't eat. He had never, until 10 o'clock, he wasn't like, because he was still involved in everything. And that's just kind of, I think it's worst case scenario. I mean, he still had a nice time, it was still a beautiful wedding. And at the end, he was like, kind of happy it was over. But, I don't want that for people. I want this experience of where they can relax and settle into it and take this moment in and just focus on the connections, on your partner, on everyone, how nice they're looking and how everything's kind of,
And also, there's also nerves, they come into play, right?
Yeah.
You would think that, oh, I'm ready. Everything is
Right.
going to be great. And then you wake up in the morning and you just
Panic.
hyper and panicking, and you can't control some things. And then if you have to be involved in coordinating everything, that gets very stressful. Because also, as a person from the side, right? I am very involved with my couples. I want the best for them, but I'm still a person, kind of a bystander there. When couples present their vision to the guests, they also feel a little bit nervous. They want to show them what they're all about. And so if it is somebody like a separate company is doing everything, it's much easier. So they can actually focus and enjoy the event. And I always recommend couples to try to get as many free time on the day off as possible, because it's almost impossible with all the current trends that we have. There's whole big thing about couples, starting getting ready in the morning, and then we have this hours and hours of photography, and then they get to the venue, there is ceremony, and then we have usually so many things planned out how a traditional wedding would go, right? And I will tell you, the less traditional things you do on a day off, much happier you will be, much more relaxed, and you will actually have time to enjoy. Just like you said, the groom didn't have time to eat. That's my number one thing. I always remind couples, don't forget to eat. I cannot have you hangry. I cannot have you just, starving inside. I know your nerves are, but please eat or your food is going to get cold. You're not going to enjoy it. I know it from a personal experience. Years ago when I planned my baby shower, we had 80 people come out to our event, and it was more like a party, honestly. We had a great celebration, but when the party was over, we went to In-N-Out to get some food. Even though my baby shower was catered, I barely had time to eat, and I tried and I was pregnant, so I tried, but after the event I still went to get some.
You're even pregnant and you were eating. That's not a good time to fast.
Exactly. So on the wedding day, with so many things back to back, people do forget human factor, right? There is human factor that somebody will need to, go get refreshed, or the dress need to be, bustled up, or something else. Somebody needs to go to the parking lot to go pick up something. So there's so little things. So if we do plan it sometimes we get clients who want to plan everything by the minute, and it's not realistic. So we want to tell them, no, let's just leave this much time or this much time, so you can relax, so you don't have to feel like you have to consistently keep moving, because you will be tired, and because you get all tensed up internally too. Next day you wake up and you feel sore. I wake up sore.
Yeah, right.
Next day. So That's certainly
That's a
one
great
of those.
point because so you even like you do you plan as like, hey, you should have a time of free time. Is that what you mentioned, free time?
I suggest, yes. I always try to put in the timeline at least 2-3 breaks within the
Breaks, yeah.
timeline.
Who'd have thought?
It-
I
it-
never hear people planning breaks. I've never like at a wedding planner. Like, okay, this is break time.
Right.
But like everyone's got break. You gotta work. No, you can't work for 4 hours legally. You have to have a break after 4 hours, right?
Right.
And these people are going 20 hours at a wedding without a break.
Exactly, because so it's interesting because I've learned this. I'm from the meetings and events industry, which I've discovered last year. I thought weddings were part of the meetings and events industry, but they are not. They're romantic private events industry.
That's interesting. Right.
But I'm getting a little bit more involved into other sorts of events just to learn, and I'm just finding out so much interesting information. And I was listening to this webinar where the speaker was actually saying that the more, for example, they were planning a conference, and the more your conference is stacked up with activities and things going on, the less value they're getting out of your conference because they don't have time to absorb the information they're getting. So you have to plan those nothingness
Right.
breaks. So the information they receive, their activities they've been doing, your brain has time to absorb it and remember it and enjoy it. So that little thing, I listened to it and I was like, this is exactly true. Remember, if you go to school and college and you have class,
Yeah.
you did study, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it says that psychologically you have to create those breaks so your body and your mind has time to realize what's happening. Even though you're listening, you're present, but you just don't have time. So what happens in the wedding day when you're 12, 14 hours running around, starting from hair, makeup, and all the way until your grand exit, you run through it and then okay, the wedding day is done. We've been planning it for a year and it's so quick because you didn't have time to stop and smell the roses,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
So
great
you have to schedule those.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think that would be a super important thing for people to take away from this is taking breaks and planning breaks. I've never heard that before where people are actually planning a break, where after photos, because I always hear, okay, so after photos, we're going to be doing this, and then after that, we're getting cocktails, and then after this, we're going to dance, and for our first dance at this. I never hear, after the photos, we're going to go to the beach for 20 minutes and just hang out for a bit and just get reset on ourselves. Like, that would be such a wonderful thing. Or, there's a corner over here. Like, I could even set up like a corner where it can be like a little private time for the bride and groom just to kind of get their bearings. Like, I'm totally thinking about this now where I can have, because I have like little nooks and corners in my wedding. It's not like this big open space. So I could even have like a little setup and suggest that to brides and grooms. Like, hey, take 10 minutes here and just take it in, take in this moment of how the ceremony just finished. You just took all these photos. You just spilled your heart out and cried in front of everyone you knew on camera. That's exhausting. That's an adrenaline dump. I mean, that is that's a big moment, and you need time. You can't just jump right into photos and then right after photos come home, we gotta do cocktails and then
Exactly.
I think that's a great idea. That's a really smart idea.
And it also adds to that overall experience, right, that we're talking about, is because you don't have time to remember if you have all these things. The difficult part comes in here is we have specific times that we hire the venue, we book the venue for, we hire the vendors for. So we have to be mindful of that if we do add those little breaks here and there, it adds overall to the cost. So I think this is why a lot of times right now it's so difficult to create those empty breaks in the timeline, because we have the venue, let's just say, for 5 hours, and if you're going to create additional 2 breaks of 30 minutes in there, that's a whole hour out of 5 hours. So, and couples end up thinking, well, I'll be fine, I'll be okay. But if you think about it from the experience point of view, you say, you should understand the issue is coming from you've never been married before. You've never had a wedding before. So you think it will be all fun
Yeah.
and awesome to just run through your whole day. And it's difficult to also perceive and fully understand that recommendation if you haven't experienced that. Because I always like to say how, new moms, for example, before the baby comes, everybody tells them, you need to sleep now, sleep as much as you can. And I remember when I was a new mom, I was like, well, I'm trying to sleep, but I'm already, I can't really sleep anymore either. I'm ready for the baby to come out. But then once when baby was born, I really wish I was sleeping how people were telling me. But you can't really fully understand it.
Yeah.
So with weddings, because most of the couples never been married before, they don't quite understand why this is important. And if you're planning it on your own, please account time for that. If you're planning it with a wedding planner, I hope they suggest you that as well, just because you will have much more time to enjoy. You'll have time to relax, because even, a lot of times couples think, okay, we've done all the pictures before the ceremony. We got the ceremony through, we got the cocktail hour, but usually is filled with pictures again. And then we have grand entrance, first dance, we go into dinner, and then we'll relax. No. During your dinner, all your guests will want to come and say hello to you.
That's right. If people think they're going to get breaks.
Yes. No, there's no
if it's
break.
planned, it's not. Unless it's a planned break, you're not getting a break.
Exactly,
Right.
because whether it is 20 people or whether it is 300 people, they will try to come up and say hello because they want to see you. They probably haven't seen you in a while. They want to give their personal recommendation, congratulations. They would want to take a picture with you, right, even on a cell phone or something. And this is why bride and groom don't have time to eat. They don't have time to relax, go use a ladies' room, if necessary, because all these people will be coming up and they would want to say hello. They don't want to leave you alone thinking that this is appropriate, this is what's necessary. But a lot of times couples just want a little bit of peace on the day off. And if you don't plan it, just like you said, it's not going to happen.
and it's the big grand king and queen table, all the spotlights, everything's
Right.
pointed towards them.
Yeah.
It's not a private break spot.
Exactly.
You can't go like, whoo, yeah,
Yeah.
this has been a good wedding. I just gotta chill out for a bit. No, you're gonna be in there in your throne, right? Just kind of like looking like,
Right.
It's not a relaxing spot either, So
Exactly.
it's the whole thing of it's a performance a lot, and you can feel that with the bride and groom who are just not used to being in the spotlight. I mean, a lot of people just aren't in the spotlight on a regular basis.
And water breaks. Those are
Water.
also required.
Yeah.
Because just like in Hawaii, and I also plan weddings in Vegas, it's hot, especially in summertime. It's so hot and people forget to drink water. And I've had actually one time, one of my brides fainted.
Wow.
On the day, it was a June wedding and there was so much going on and it was outdoor ceremony with luckily indoor reception. But by the time they got to reception, there were so many things outside, pictures and ceremony and this and that. She fainted. It was too overwhelming of all the things that's happening, and there's emotions and your body can't handle it, and if you don't drink water, just those basic things. And when people come to either of these destinations, I always remind them, please drink plenty of water, please use sunscreen, just protect yourself from just traveling to a destination already is tiring. So if you're local, it's even better. But if you're traveling to a destination, which most of the time Hawaii and Vegas would be destination place, so much pressure going on and you don't know, especially when you're going to get time to eat, when you drink and you have to do these pictures, you have to look nice, you have to look presentable. For girls, they want to make sure they don't eat until they're done with all the pictures so their belly's not, you know
Right.
what I mean? Those little things that you don't think of, for gentlemen, the same thing. They get too hot in their suits if it is a full kind of elegant style event. And on pictures, you can't really tell after the fact. But on the day off, those basic things that you don't think of, they will happen. The wedding we had on Saturday, the group, they came from Arizona. So the humidity was killing them here.
Right.
And they had a great time, but at the same time, I could tell it was difficult to breathe, and they were using fans the whole time, and the ladies' makeup was a little already running by the time. So it's just kind of those things where just think what's more important. Is it you having the look or how you feel? And I always suggest put the preference on how you feel on the day off, because that's what you're going to remember. Your pictures, you can Photoshop them, put some filter, you'll look nice.
Yeah. So with wedding planning, okay, so someone's thinking that I'm going to get a wedding planner or a day of coordinator. Someone might be thinking, geez, I didn't even know there was a difference. What's the difference between a coordinator and a planner? What sounds like the same word to me. There's probably planning way ahead, planning a couple days before, being just a day of coordinator. Maybe people just even can call you up on the phone for a consultation for an hour just to, hey, do you have any advice? What kind of different services do you offer and do people can expect?
That's a great question, actually. And I know different companies, they have slightly different ways of how they word it and how they provide services. Speaking of us, we do have 2 planning services and 1 day of coordination. We do provide full planning, and our staff coordinates events. So that's certainly something that we take care of. I know sometimes some planners do just planning and they outsource coordination. So with us, it's all will be us, because we like to take charge. We will run your show so you can relax and rely on us to take care of everything. So with planning services, we provide a full planning, where I like to say, the easiest way to say it is that I'm your one and main point of contact for everything. Your venue, your photography, your timelines, floor plans, your whole logistics, everything, your booking, negotiations and contracts and all that stuff. So that's your full wedding planning, and it does come with staff on the day off to coordinate. For those who have a little bit more time and they say, hey, Regina, I would love to be more involved in the planning. I would love to personally talk to my vendors. And I just really enjoy that part. I offer wedding consultant service, where I am guiding the couple through the wedding planning process. I give them recommendations on which vendors would be suitable for the vision they're going for, but then they discuss the details themselves. So those are 2 planning parts, where you can come to me with questions, but with full wedding planning, I'm planning your event. With the wedding consultant, I'm guiding you how to plan your event. And still, both services, we provide day of coordination. Now, what is the day of coordinator, right? Is a lot of times people are confused. Who is that? What do they do? Day of coordinator is the person or a team. We usually with my weddings, it's a team. So those who basically run the show on the day off, it's the people who you come up to have any questions, any changes, or anything that needs to be done. There is one point of contact who will be assisting on the day off. So our third service that we provide comes with a month of planning. I may have mentioned it. We come in, we finalize all your details, we introduce ourselves to the vendors so they come to us for any questions and don't bother you on the day off. And so while you're getting your hair and makeup and drinking champagne in the morning, you're not worried. Is my photographer on time? Did my dance floor arrive and they set it up correctly where it's supposed to be? Did they put enough, correct amount of napkins on each table versus, because this table has 8 sitting and those have 10 seats and stuff like that. So that's the person who coordinates, make sure everything is done the way you planned and the way you wanted. So we do provide that service for those who want to plan everything themselves, but they need somebody on the day off to make sure everything is run smoothly. They know what time to start, what time ceremony is supposed to start and end, who goes after who for the processional and things like that. So that's kind of what we offer.
Yeah, so that's great that you have those different tiers, because really you have something for everybody. Because I really think that everyone should talk to a planner. If you're gonna have a wedding, you should talk to a planner. You should just talk to one. Even if it's for an hour, you probably have some different rates for different amounts of times they talk to you, right? You bounce questions, because they bounce questions off me, and I can feel they're reluctant, because they're like, this guy's just a venue. He's not a planner, even though basically I am. In a lot of ways, I'll end up being a day of coordinator and planner, because people are just constantly giving me questions. And I'm fine with that. And I actually want people to ask me more questions, because I know if they're not asking about this now, they're going to ask about it at some point.
Exactly.
They're going to wonder about, just like the day of, all of a sudden I get these questions. Like there's certain questions. I always get these certain questions. And, they always want to know, trash. Please ask me about trash beforehand. When people ask me, like when they're actually checking out the venue for the first time, I'm like, okay, this person has thought about stuff, but most people are just like, the night of, they're just like, what do we do with trash? I'm like, I told you it's in the contract. I've said 5 times. This is what happens. So, there's so many things, and so ask myself, but I think more importantly, ask a planner. Find someone like obviously consulting can be call you on the phone, right? I mean, you don't have to be in
Right.
person. So call Regina and ask her, okay, I'm planning a wedding. Just what, be open. Be a bit humble. I mean, most people are, but I think they're afraid to ask. I think because they've been to so many weddings and everybody has a wedding that people just thought, well, they figured it out. I guess that's just part of my duty as an engaged person to just figure it out. Like, that's like, I don't know. There's some,
I agree.
is that something that people they think that, oh, well, everyone's gotten married and, it's just part of my duties as being engaged is I gotta be a planner all of a sudden.
I agree. I think it's because many people assume they're supposed to know all of this, because it sounds like, well, planning a wedding, what's there to plan? Even for the longest time, my family couldn't understand what I do for a living. And
What do you mean you plan weddings?
Right?
Weddings just happen.
Exactly.
I've been to a wedding. It was fine.
They also say, and I say too, it's not a rocket science. Yes, it's not, but there's just so many things you need to think and consider. Otherwise, it's not going to be a fun day. So when I would explain to my family or my parents what I do, and they started slowly understand how many things, what all goes into play. And so with experience, I have specific formula, right? What needs to be done. Otherwise, we are missing some things. And for couples who do it probably for their first time, first, they think they're supposed to know everything right away. So they go online, they Google, they watch TikToks, YouTubes, they read Wedding Wire articles and things like that. And it gets overwhelming for them too. So they think they're supposed to know it, so they don't ask those questions. For me, I like to bring this out of them because a lot of times people also don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
They have no idea. When we tour venues with couples, I always tell them, take a look at this chair. This is your standard chair, because you just walk around and you look overall on the ambience. But then when you start planning, you say, okay, so I want to have nice chairs. What kind of chairs does venue? And you forgot what kind of, so you have to reach out. So I tell them, take a look. This is the standard chair. This is going to be your standard table. This is the standard linens. Do you like that kind of tablecloth, or do you want something fancier or different colors? You don't really look at it right away, right? You just kind of overall looking at the ambience, but you don't look at the details. So a lot of times people simply don't know what they need to know and what they don't even know. So with those kind of things, that's why I kind of remind the couples, okay, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So we get as detailed as, for example, I ask a couple to assign a person who will be my point of contact on the day off, because I don't want to bother my couple with any questions. So, for example, if the couple brings me things like, some personal items, maybe a guest book, a card box and things like that, they bring it for us to set up on the day off. Who picks it up at night? It's a simple question that you can decide on a day off, yes, but at the same time, if we don't discuss it in advance, sometimes people get surprised and somebody who was supposed to take it, they already drove off and there's just some random guests, or maybe everybody left and now I have to chase down the couple who really does not want to do anything at the day of, end of the day anymore. So I always ask them, who will be responsible for these things? So I can pack it and I can give it to them and that it's safe with them. It's such a small question, but you don't think about this. Just like you said with trash, people don't have enough space to think about all these things. They get overwhelmed. And we as vendors, we know only half the things that they're dealing with, because they're also dealing with, family on their end.
Right.
We don't participate in that
That's
part,
right. That's right.
There is a lot of sometimes drama going on as well that we don't take part in. So they have so many things going on. take half of it and give it to your planner.
Yeah,
Let
right.
the planner take care of it.
That's a good point.
You know.
Yeah.
And I like to tell people too, I say, sometimes I have couples who say, hey, we have a little bit of a difficult person, this and that, and this and that. And I always tell them, I don't mind to be a bad guy. If you want me to cut off somebody at the bar by 9 o'clock, I will do it. If you want somebody to, if you want me to ask somebody to leave, I don't mind it. I am here for you, for your great experience. Give this stress to me. I'll take care of it.
That's interesting. Yeah, wow, you're like a counselor too.
A little bit.
Because I never thought of that too. Where yes, they're all they're thinking about is the napkins and chairs and what's my song gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
But there's all this new stuff that's gonna come that you can't plan for, which is Uncle Larry and Pat Silva. They're gonna have a fight the day before, and again, the last wedding I had, I was talking to they lost half their party because there was a fight beforehand, and they just all of a sudden they're not coming now, and so there was that extra stress, and then you compound that onto who's gonna hold the mic and who's gonna when's the first dance gonna be and who's got the plates, so even if you think you have everything plan that you could possibly, you're an amazing planner,
Right.
there's going to be a whole bunch of things that you won't be able to deal with on that day because there's going to be other stuff you're going to have to deal with, because it's a huge party with your closest friends and family, and people are messy,
Absolutely.
and so having that extra hand of help is just going to help in so many different ways as well, because look at a wedding. If you think about it, it's like the ceremony is usually the first thing, right? Pretty much you have the people getting ready, get to know. But it's like, what is a ceremony? It's like a stage performance. You have music that's getting queued up. Sometimes there's lighting, there's flowers. Everything's going to be just set up. You get people coming at the right time, at the right moment, standing in the right spot. It really is like a theater kind of performance. And how many of your friends and family have theater experience or have been in that?
Exactly.
Okay, and then after that, you have photos. Okay, now you have a whole photo shoot. Who's going to organize? Where you got to get everybody. Usually the photographer's kind of good at that, but sometimes if you go in cheap on a photographer, it's just one. They're not going to have time to go round up your uncle who's went, for a smoke break.
Right.
And so again, a coordinator is going to help with that. Otherwise, you're going to be running around doing that. Okay, then you have usually cocktail time or dinner time. Now you're setting up a restaurant.
Yes.
If you're doing cocktail hour, you're setting up a bar.
Mm-hmm.
You're setting up a bar. You're setting up a restaurant. Then you're setting up a dance party.
Yep.
This is really what a wedding is. That pretty much most weddings, right?
Exactly. Yes, and it's you have to also make sure that your flow runs well, and sometimes. I will give an example where I caught myself I had to change the timeline of events on the day off, just because of the positioning of the floor plan. So you hear that, well, at least I know, I hear it all the time when we talk about the experience. Think about actual footsteps that your guests will be doing from the point when they arrive. Where do they go? Where do they turn? How they sit down? What happens after that? How do they go? Because this is a whole part of the experience, right? So you have to think of, for example, we had this wedding a couple of weeks ago where we were planning the first look, and we were thinking the location for the first look, and photographers had one idea, and I thought it was a great idea, but I had to bring up to their attention that the area they were thinking for the first look it doesn't have like a nice clean road or flooring. It was just gravel, which means the bride that is wearing heels will go on this gravel and her dress is going to get dusty. So it's not something that is going to stop your wedding,
Right?
But it can potentially give you a little frustration because on heels, walking on rocks, with your dress getting dusty, you want to keep it pristine and clean the whole night. So those kind of little things. So we had to change the location, and the same goes for just like you said. We first have ceremony. As the guests come in, we want to make sure they come in and get seated before we put down the aisle runner and the pedals, if they're involved with that, because a lot of guests will kind of just go in through the aisle and they will take their seats, and it's all going to be messed
now they're
up.
going to kick them everywhere.
Even the wedding that we had in April here, we waited until everybody got seated and we put the, if you remember, I was doing the swirls with
Yeah.
petals. And what came into play is little wind and it messed up the swirls. So I had to redo them again. And then we had the pops were running around. They were so cute, but they kept messing up the
Right.
swirls, So those little things, in order to get that look that the couple wants, you have to think about something completely unrelated, So you have to think, okay, so we need to make sure the guest is seated at this time, so we have enough time to make the swirls, so we start the ceremony on time. So you kind of think always backwards.
Yeah.
Even the timeline, when couples ask me what time do you even schedule things? Well, I always say, think what time your ceremony starts, what time your event ends, what activities we're planning within, and then we're going to schedule backwards if you're planning to do photo shoot, and then we schedule backwards how much time you have hair and makeup. So this is where your day starts, this is where your day ends, and this is how we create the whole timeline. So it's always formula to everything, but when you do it for the first time and you do it yourself, you don't quite know. And, if you ask your relatives how they did it, they probably don't remember by now.
Yeah, and then the flow, people don't think about the flow. They don't think about what they're going to do when guests first show up. And I mean, one thing I really like, I find weddings that go really smoothly are ones with MCs, because MCs, they just control the flow, and people just have the point of person where they're like, okay, we're going to get ready soon. We're going to have the ceremony in half an hour. So go over here and get something to drink and hang out with over here. And then this time we're going to do this. And people are like, oh, okay. They know what to do, and they're just kind of relaxing, and they know the ceremony is going to start. They announce the ceremony, then afterwards what's going to happen, and just the whole flow is so important. Otherwise, you get people starting to drift off, and and then again, we're all about thinking about that connection that we're trying to make. We're trying to have these people intermingle and connect, and naturally, people who don't know each other are just kind of start to drift away if there's nothing to kind of keep them together. And so that flow keeps them together, all kind of in that same kind of, like almost like a river, it's kind of keep them in that same path along the flow, like a little tour.
Yes,
you go on like a zoo tour. It's really fun when you go on the tour, because they're like, okay, we go here and we go here, we go here. It keeps everybody together. Everyone connects. I went to the zoo the other day, and it was like this tour. I've never been on a zoo with a tour. And they were feeding the animals as we went. I connected with all these people that I didn't know, just because we were just hanging out and commenting on what they're eating and what they're doing. I developed all these relationships just by naturally having someone guiding, because we had these persons who were talking, okay, we're going to go here next, and this is what we're doing. So if you have someone like that, you're just going to naturally allow people to have those connections as well.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Having a great MC who will keep people in the know, right? I hear that all the time, where couples would say, hey, we had this wedding, we went, attended this wedding, and we didn't really know what's going to happen next and where we go next. And it's also experience for your guests. They need to know, they need to be told what to do. They need to be told, for example, the way we build our coordination timeline, not the day of timeline, but I have a separate timeline for our coordinators. We schedule things like 10 to 15 minutes before, to make sure that, for example, if we have a cake cutting ceremony, right? And the bride says, hey, let's move it up. I would like to do it now 15 minutes earlier. I always have to pause, because we can't just go straight to do it. I need to make sure the DJ is having the right song for it. They can just switch it, right? The DJ has the right song. I need to make sure that the photographer didn't step out to the bathroom, that your cake is fully set. Well, usually it is set, but just to make sure we have actually the cake knife and server, and some cakes comes with ribbons, and we need to make sure we remove the ribbon so you can cut it. It doesn't get stuck on the ribbon there, it's on pictures, those little details. So that's how we build our coordination timeline, just like you said. If we have father-daughter dance coming up, I come up 10 minutes before to the father, and I say, please don't go anywhere. In about 10 minutes, we're going to invite you for dancing, because he doesn't know. He has no idea when his dance is going to. So he may want to have a smoke break, and he will leave, or use again have a bathroom break, or maybe go to the bar, get a drink or something like that. And you don't want to startle guests. So a good MC for that, he or she will make sure that the whole crew knows what's happening, all your guests count, so they don't disperse, just like you said. I also like attending weddings as a guest because it gives me a different perspective.
Right.
So I had a wedding.
You just crash lots of weddings. You're just going.
I should.
You just go in there. You look like you could join in any wedding. So you just feel like
Right.
I'm just joking.
But we had, I attended a wedding in May for a good friend of mine, and we had roughly 2 hours, like a 2 hour break between ceremony and reception. So some of us went to a winery and we sat down, had a great time. And it was interesting to me to see, because some of the friends who are not in the wedding industry, they were taking it so lightly in terms of what time they had to be back. Me as a wedding planner,
Right. You're
like, you guys, we have to be back on time. They're going to start their grand entrance, and you don't want to be standing aside or barging in as they're doing their first dance. And for them, they were just, having a great time. And so during that wedding, we gave the guests too much freedom to do what they wanted. And with that said, I had to
As you as a guest.
Yes.
So you were like the fly on the
I was
wall,
the
kind of
guest.
like, oh, this is going to be trouble.
Exactly. I am thinking, because the group of people who I was with, they were not really rushing to be there
Right.
on time. They were like, oh, they will start without us. That's okay. I was like, I know, but they invited you to be a part of it.
Right.
So the least you can do is just be there on time.
So at least invite Regina to all your weddings.
Right.
Even if
I'll keep it from inside.
she'll work for
Undercover.
food, and she'll just help the whole thing go smooth.
I'll be the undercover wedding
Yeah,
coordinator.
that's what you need. That's what you can just infiltrate.
So, you just gave me an idea for a new service. Like a secret shopper.
Secret shopper, secret planner here. Yeah.
Exactly. So you're right. You have to kind of guide the guests from, point A to point B, so they know where it's, because a lot of times they also don't, like ceremony time, for example. That's the most common mistake, where people tell the guests the actual ceremony time. We would want to tell the guests at least, maybe if let's say your ceremony starts at 4:30. Don't tell them they have to be there at 4:30. Tell them 4 o'clock.
Right.
Or at least tell them ceremony starts at 4:30, but we need everybody no later than 4:15. So this way the guests don't show up too early, which sometimes affects us to complete the setup and things like that. They don't show up too early, but they also don't come in late, because a lot of times guests would show up right at 4:30. And it means we will start your ceremony late. And if you're a flexible person and your officiant is not on time and doesn't have to go to another wedding, great. But if you want to make sure everything runs, at least starts on time, and your guests are the ones who are running late, you will get a little frustrated.
You will, yeah.
So
this wedding I had recently totally happened 2 hours late. It was 2
my
hours.
goodness.
And that's when I was saying the groom was like, come on. Because, he's like, he knows, like, we have this plan here. No one else knows it, but he knows
Right.
it. And, sure enough, at the end of the night, he's the one who didn't get to eat. He's the one, remember at the end of the night, they wanted to have more time. I was like, sorry, we have to wrap up. The vendors have to leave with, we have to wrap up at a certain time. It's not like we can go like, oh yeah, let's go an
Exactly.
extra time. Let's go, this isn't your house party. You have vendors who have certain things, their businesses
Yes.
that open and close. And they missed out on some things they wanted to do. And just for some reasons, people were just showing up. We couldn't believe it. It's like 3 o'clock. This is supposed to be the ceremony, and no one's here.
Right.
And that happens a lot.
It
lot.
does. It's, I always tell the guests the couples, that they have to notify their guests several times, because the guests, they just know you have a wedding on that day. They're probably not going to check what time your ceremony starts until your day of the wedding.
Right.
Because they have so many things going on. They have work to, they have family, your wedding, they're excited to be there, but it's still not something that they've been thinking of for the past year.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know all the details of what you're planning. They have no idea where they're supposed to be seated, what time it starts, what's going to happen. They have no idea. They're just coming and as a guest, right? So if you want things to be a little bit more organized, remind the guest. The easiest way is you have your website with all information, what time things supposed to be, your Q&A, what's the appropriate dress code. And a lot of times people have weddings on, let's say, like a grassy area, right, like you have it, and then ladies come in heels and they just stuck through your grass, right? Advise them, tell them to wear some comfortable shoes, and maybe make sure that they're at least 15 minutes earlier, and just send it the day before to everybody as a reminder. You guys, we're looking forward to see you. Here's the reminder to check out our timeline, and things like that. And they will just kind of give a guest a reminder. I know in one point you say, hey, you snooze, you lose, right? But then if they snooze, it's sort of kind of you lose on the wedding day,
that's
because
right.
it is going to affect
Yeah.
you if the guest's running late, and because they are not as on point about your wedding as you are.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And again, it's like all these things that you don't even know starting to plan a wedding. Well, now you can't expect your guests who maybe haven't even ever been to a wedding, haven't just gone through this whole thing of planning. They don't know all the stuff that you went through. You may think that they're just going to know how important this is to be on time because I told them.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting you mentioned a website. So you have the people for like a wedding website. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
People create websites for the weddings.
Some people go very elaborate and they actually create, unique URL, and they have the whole new setting. But most of the couples do it just using the Knot, Wedding Wire, with Joy, Zola. There's special wedding marketplace websites that they already have just
kind of templates or whatever.
Templates, that's right, for a wedding. You don't have to go too crazy with it. Have a couple of pictures and just some basic information that will be there. It may have information about your transportation, right? If you're providing transportation for your guests, which is I always recommend, because this way we can ensure everybody's on time. Right. So, but then you have transportation schedule. The guests don't know. They don't know where so the day before the wedding, I even always like to send to my couple, if there is a little bit of confusion where they would be picked up, the day before the wedding, I always tell them, at this time, please make sure you're right at this place and tell all your guests this is where you guys are going to be picked up. Because I don't want to stress out on the day off and look, where's this bus? I don't know, is this at the valet of the hotel, or you know what I mean? And somebody's going to be late. So you have to consistently remind people things because they will forget. And it's normal. You can expect them to know. But the wedding website, it's a kind of a great place where you can provide all information, central location, so you don't have to text 20 people or 200 people different things. Just have your website and send it there. You have your registry there if you're choosing to do registry. Special destination weddings, you don't want your guests to bring all your guests to your to you. Let's say you're coming from the mainland to Hawaii and then your guests bringing gifts. How are you going to take it back? Now you have to ship them or something, right? So create registry, everything is delivered straight to your home.
That's a good
You want
point.
to go that way. And then, again, attire. People like to know how to dress appropriately, especially if it is important to you. A lot of trends right now where couples require everybody to wear black, let's say, or specific color, but I really like the ones that are all black and it looks so elegant, so just top notch. Let them know right there. That's the wedding I just recently went. My good friend got married and they wanted everybody to be dressed in black. I got it from the website. I didn't have to bother him. What do I wear? What do you guys want there?
Right, because people do have questions.
Exactly.
And they're just going to text you.
Exactly.
And then you're going to like, oh yeah, let me see here. Okay, there.
Right.
And then you send it. And otherwise you got one spot.
Exactly. One spot, and it just advises everything. And unless they can't read.
Yeah.
That's a perfect solution, I think.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I should offer that because I have a website and I could probably have people have their own pages easily on the website. And they can just go get a specific link. Because I gave people directions to my place. And I remember when I worked with you, I remembered like, oh, I texted you. This is the address to the people coming. Like, I already got that. I already sent it to them. I'm like, oh, good. Because I'm like, usually people just like constantly have to send it out and like, send this to your guests, send this to your guests, But again, with the coordinator, they're already sending that out and already thinking of that.
It is part of those things because we always have to, just like in your case, I have to communicate to the vendors of where the loading area is or what time they should be there to set up to make sure they complete it by this time. So communication is, I have a background in journalism and it kind of goes hand in hand with communication. So this is, I guess, why I also I over communicate things to make sure people don't forget, because I'm hearing it, sometimes I hear feedback from vendors on how they get to work with other wedding planners or coordinators, and they complain sometimes how they have to chase a wedding planner or coordinator for what time does it start? What time do we have to have this ready and this ready? And frankly, I can't imagine where a vendor's chasing me. It's usually, in my world, it's the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, and again, as a vendor, as a venue, I really appreciate that, because I had a wedding just a couple days ago, different one, but they were like, "Oh, the vendor's going to show up at this time." I'm like, "We're not open till 10. If the vendor's going to show up early, then you have to pay for extra time, because now we have to set everything up
Right.
ahead of time." And they're like, "Oh," so they ended up paying. We ended up scrambling to get it ahead, but again, because they couldn't change, the vendor was already set, and they already told the vendor. And again, the more things that people don't understand, that these are business hours, and yeah, vendors are going to want to know when they can show up, when they can come and pick it up.
You have to certainly educate people on this thing. So it's something that people don't know sometimes. I don't like calling it, where people just expect you to do it, but they just don't know how things work. A very good example, we had a wedding in April, but it was in Las Vegas, and we had to schedule vendor arrivals, those who do setup, at specific time, because the hotel had specific loading dock where specific part of the
Schedule.
they had like schedule of who is going to be there as security to open the loading
right.
dock, so make sure the vendors come in and they close it. They can't just have you show up at any time. Now, it doesn't work with every single venue, but this venue was particular like that. So I had to make sure that I check in with all the vendors what time they're planning on arriving, so I can coordinate it with the venue so that they have staff on site. Otherwise, it would be closed. And we had one vendor who said, "Oh, we will be there at noon." We had the staff waiting for them at noon, and they didn't come. So when I called them, they said, "Oh, we just decided to go and check in the hotel first," thinking it's not a big deal. On my end, I was trying to stress that it is a big deal, you guys, because we have people staffed for your arrival. So now we had to leave them go and let them go, and now we had to reschedule it. So then they understood how serious that was. But those little things, again, it sounds like so trivial, but there's people who get paid to be there on time, and if you don't follow the rules, we have
That's
to
money.
change it. Exactly.
I mean, you're spending money, you're losing money.
Exactly.
And so again, with the money thing, a lot of people, they think that if they don't get a coordinator, they don't get a planner, they're going to save money. Not necessarily. You might be losing money on that, because vendors, they're spending more time, more money than they need to, and that's always going to come back to you. And so I hope people get an idea of planning a wedding. So we've probably overwhelmed lots of people, but it's important that people understand what they're getting into. And I think I feel like you're saying that as well. People don't realize what they're actually getting into. And we don't expect people to know. And that's another one. We don't expect you to know. So if you're just planning a wedding, unless you're a professional planner or an event person, or you have someone in your family who's a planner of weddings or events, you don't know, and you won't really know what is gonna actually, how much actually it takes. Yeah.
Right.
And so it's, for you to really have a nice wedding, you need someone that knows. At the very least, talk to a professional like yourself and have a consultation. At the very least,
Absolutely.
Get that down and have that early in the planning, early in the process. Because I mean, the wedding, everyone wants this beautiful wedding. It's such a special moment. You're going to connect with all your friends and family, and you want it to be this special moment. You don't want it to be a job.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I do. You get engaged, and the first thing you think of, oh yes, I'm getting married. I'm getting a job. I don't think too many people I'm so happy. He gave me a ring, which means now I get to make now I have a new job as a wedding planner.
Right.
That's not what most people think when they get engaged. That now I'm a wedding planner, and this is going to be my new job for the next year. And they don't, that's not, but that's really what it is, unless you're working with someone who's going to help you.
It certainly is, because also, as I said, frequently, I would put it that way, I have to chase vendors down to make sure I get the responses and make sure they're confirmation and some things, because they're also busy. They having so many, events going on. So in order for me to confirm and triple check with some vendor, I have to sometimes get their attention. And so when couples have job, kids, parents, pets, school to take care of. They want to rest a little bit in the end of the day, right? They maybe have a second job, or even they take the second job to afford a wedding,
Yeah.
right? So when all of this come into play, and then you still actually have to sit down and think, and then let's say your opinions with your fiance go separate ways on something, so there are disagreements appearing. So this is where all the stress, and of course the money you have to pay for everything, all of this is a cocktail for just stressful
Right.
process,
A
the whole
disaster.
thing. So if you can relay these problems to somebody who just does it on a regular basis, it eliminates a lot of guesswork. It just creates certain trust in some things, so that you know things are going to happen. But then I definitely recommend hiring somebody with experience, because a lot of people will be trying to break into industry. We all go through this. That's okay. But if you choosing to have someone with experience, they of course it will cost a little bit more, but you're going to have to make the decision. Do I want it to be stress-free and I just trust this person, or do I want it to be stressed and still pay somebody
Yeah.
some money? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's definitely your decision there.
There's a balance there, and you got to weigh your options. And like you said at the beginning, like you don't know what you don't know, and just kind of accept that that's totally fine. Like it's totally fine. We've all been to weddings. We have no idea how they did this. Just like accept, like I had no idea. And what you can do, even if, is you don't know exactly sometimes even what you want. You see all the photos on Pinterest and Instagram, and you're just overwhelmed, and you may not even know what you want. But that's when you talk to someone like yourself, you're going to sit down and say, look, what's
Pardon me.
important? You're going to basically, like you're always using this, drawing people out. So you're gonna draw out what do you want this to be? This could be this, could be this. You've done 9 years of weddings. You've seen them all.
Yes.
What do you want it to be? And someone, they can really reflect on, what do I want this experience to feel like? And what do I want my family to experience? And then maybe this thing they were so stuck on, like, oh, I really just have to have a live band because of this. And you're like, well, you know what? If we don't have a live band, then this will happen. Oh. Or maybe I want a live band, or maybe a live band will draw this out, like
Yes.
because there is so many options, and it's absolutely overwhelming how many options there are, more and more.
And you agree, I'm sorry I interrupted, but I agree with how you actually said that you need to pick exactly the one line, what you're choosing for your day, because there are so many options, and you want to have this color palette, but then you have this color palette, and you wanted this vision, with outdoor setting, but then you look, and then Pinterest shows you this beautiful indoor settings, and then you go all over the place. And I see it frequently where brides start with something, and then they go right away into discussing 10 things at the same time. How much it's going to cost to rent linens, and how much the photo booth, and how much the florist, and at the same time the photographer, all at the same time. And you would think you doing so much, and it's going to you're just going to book, and then you'll be done. No. If it happens that you book, and then you change your mind a month later, all of this is already booked and deposits put down, and now you're stressed how to get rid of it.
But deposits,
Right.
People don't realize sometimes you are locked a
Exactly.
year ahead. Sometimes that's it.
Right.
Your money's in there. It's not coming out.
And you have to, so when I explain it to my couples, I always say you have to think a bit about it as building a house, right? You have to have a good foundation first. That means what your vision is. Take a look at your vision, take a look at your budget, and what is your most important thing out of that day that you want, and build everything around it. Once you have foundation, then you add next, But if you haven't really set that foundation of what your wedding want to be, and then you keep planning, trying to just book different vendors at the same time, and then you change your vision, and then it can happen, because right now couples start planning not just 6 months in advance or 9 months in advance. Some couples plan obviously a year, but more than a year, 2 years, 3 years sometimes in advance. Things go out of style.
Right.
Venue that you booked may have reconstruction and can look completely different. A photographer that you booked now for your wedding in 2 years ahead can go out of business. There's so many things, especially COVID taught us a lot, how things can just drastically change
Yeah.
and your whole vision can just collapse, right? So that's what all creates stress too, because you think you need to do so many things at once. The way we plan it is we discuss the budgets to make sure that we approach it reasonably, right? We don't want to keep overspending because we changed the vision and now we wanted 6 hours of photos, but now we want 12 hours of photos and we went over the budget. So we start usually with my couples with discussing what they're comfortable with, what their vision, and whether it is realistic or not, what categories we're actually including in this budget, because some of it can be gifted by parents. A lot of times parents pay for a rehearsal dinner, for example, or something. So we discuss that and we see, okay, within this, there's specific allocations, what's reasonable to be allocated for photography, venue, and this and that. And then you see what you have, what's available within what you're looking for. Does it match your vision? If it doesn't, you have to make adjustments. Either, reduce your expectation
Yeah.
or increase the budget, or maybe reduce your guest count, whatever that is.
It's prioritizing, right? It's just, what's your
Exactly.
priority?
Exactly.
And then, okay, well, this will help facilitate this priority.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're going to be just running around. I want this. You can't have it
You
all.
have
No
to
one can
plan
have
it
it
in
all.
advance.
Was it Tom Cruise had a $2 million wedding? He couldn't have it all. He may have wanted jets flying over, but that was over his budget, right? So
Right.
no one can have it all, even Tom Cruise. And so what's your priority? And you're
Exactly.
going to know, well, if you want this experience, well, this couple did this, and it was very inexpensive, and it was very fun, and they loved it, and everyone had a great time. This is what they did, and you're like, oh, I never even thought of that, right?
Right.
You're gonna get that when you work with someone like yourself.
Exactly. And also with the budget that I was kind of discussing, that as a starting point, it also will help you to stay on track with your expenses, feel a little bit more at ease that you being responsible, right, with how you're spending. But then it also eliminates that, where I get a lot of times where couples reach out to me and they say, hey, let's just say we have just a random amount. Let's just say we have $20,000 for our wedding, and we already we have 200 people, and we want this and 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 this fit in there, but we already spent $5,000 on a dress. So you don't have 20,000.
Yeah, 20,000.
You have 15,000.
Right.
Now with 15,000, let's see the breakdown with everything that you listed you want, how much we actually have on that. Because what happens, people go and they just book things, and then they say, oh, we overspend. Well, we overspend now. That's why. It's like how you say you don't go to a grocery store hungry, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because you're going to just buy a bunch of
that's
things.
a problem. That's a big problem.
Right? That's the basic thing there as well. Don't go and start booking and buying things before you visualize what you want. You made your research. And with the wedding planner, your research is going to be much faster.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Right,
go
the
through
time you save.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the guesswork too, because you working with this vendor for the very first time, you may have some hesitance on what if they don't show up, and in my experience, I've worked with different, for example, photographers, right? I work with different kinds of photographers, and we all, of course, represent ourselves in our portfolio as the best of the best of the best. But then as a wedding planner, I also know what these photographers' regular services and pictures will look like.
Right.
So I will be able to give you certain insight on that, because our portfolio online, Instagram or anything,
That's the best of the
showcases
best. Yeah, right.
It also showcases some extra editing added on that may not be included in the package that you will be booking, because could be basic color editing, maybe some cropping out, but everything else is natural, right? But their Instagram has magazine style editing, special lighting was done for this picture. You probably can explain it a little bit more better than me. So people look at this and then they get this and they get disappointed, so having a wedding planner who can give you this insight, you will have much more reasonable expectations, and then you can make a decision. Okay, it's fine, I'll leave with this, or no, I want to make sure that I'm hiring somebody who actually does this kind of picture, that's kind of quality I will receive.
Yeah, because you're a buffer for the vendor. I mean, every vendor is going to give you best case scenario. Every vendor is, of course, going to sell their services, but you're like a broker where you've kind of, yeah, they're good at this, but they're not really good at that. So if you want this, they can do this, but not so much that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So then you can make an educated choice. And this way, and of course, when you start working with a wedding planner, you will be, and venues, we all have preferred vendors we work with, because that's kind of how we know we can ensure event will go that specific way. So if you're hiring me as a wedding planner, of course, I would suggest that you work with my preferred team, because I can rely on them, that they will be there on time, they will deliver and probably go above and beyond for you. I know I can trust them that the picture's not going to disappear, or
Right.
they have everything, and I know that they in fact will be able to help me with some things. They say, hey, I have a photographer I'm working with, he says, Regina, in order for me to provide my best service, I need you to ask the couple for this and this and this. I need a list of family, who will be doing pictures at this time and this time, because he wants to make sure that he provides his service the best. And me as a planner, I may not always know what goes into his job, right? Because I can't be specialized in everything, right? So I know he will guide me in terms of what needs to be done, so the couple does get the best from the service. But sometimes we work with some other vendors who, let's say, don't communicate, or they just a little bit. So that's why we recommend certain preferred vendors, because I know that what you guys are paying, you're going to get so much more on that. And I know I can trust them, that I'm not going to catch them running late, or, talking to you in, maybe we want to pamper you on the day off. We want to provide certain level of service. And I know that my vendors will do it, and they won't be showing up, not appropriately dressed, or using certain language that is not appropriate in a wedding, because believe it or not, it sounds like a common sense, but I've seen all sorts of professionals where I was mind blown.
One last thing, anything, just kind of, we'll just wrap up. I know you have, you've had a long trip here. You had a wedding a couple days ago. You were still recovering from that.
Yes.
That was a big one. And so anything else? Any kind of last? Of course, how do people contact you? So,
Yes.
what would be your preferred way to kind of?
So, my business is called Hawaii Weddings Planner, and I have a website. I have Instagram, all kinds of social media that you can find. So it's, I guess the easiest way to just see my portfolio would be Instagram, and it's literally Hawaii Weddings Planner that you can find. You can reach out to me there. My contact information is there as well, so you can contact me by email. So we do have another wedding coming up tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. Yes, another wedding coming up tomorrow. We're doing the ceremony rehearsal tonight. And the last thought that I would probably communicate to brides and grooms is to intentionally try to reduce the level of stress for the wedding day, because a lot of times we can't control it, and we get very stressed during the planning and on the day off. And you have to think about this as we all get a little bit anxiety here and there in a regular life, right? So for some people it's an actual condition, but generally I'm talking about like a general people, right? So you have to intentionally take that and set it aside, and it's only happening, all those jitters are happening because it's a special day. So intentionally try to reduce it, because sometimes when we get overwhelmed, it feels like everything just falls apart when it's not really. It's just your senses are heightened and you looking at everything. So the sun is too bright and the wind is too strong and somebody is talking a little too loud, and you get overwhelmed with this. So intentionally try to let some steam off, because if you don't, it can get stressful out of nothing. When things can run smoothly, but you just feel hyper and you feel a little overwhelmed, just take your time, schedule those breaks, drink your water and eat, and try to really, really enjoy it intentionally.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you doing this. I know people got a ton of value out of this, ton of free advice from an expert, and but it still doesn't replace giving you a shout, because specifics are still really important.
Absolutely. Thank you as well. It's been fun.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.
And have a good wedding next one.
Thank you.